Hello, and welcome to The Silver Lining, the weekly geekly talk show where we discuss any variety of topics that we want to talk about, though I'll admit that it's been kind of a slow news week. It's been a little slow, so I don't know how much show we're going to get in today. There's only a couple of topics that I really want to talk about, and then last week I started this format where instead of filling a whole hour with one topic, I tried to streamline it a little bit so that within the hour we get a few topics in. I don't know. I feel like I was on vacation from work. Hey Rye, I was on vacation from work, so I didn't stream at all this week. I had every intention of doing late night streams, and then I was either up playing something or I fell asleep. I mean, yesterday I went to sleep. I want to say it was maybe 10 o'clock at night, which is early for me when I'm on vacation, considering that the night, it's one or two nights before, I was up until 3:30. But welcome to you, my co-host, the chat. Who's that? We got Suave Elements, Flipnote, King Chaos, Ziego, Rye, Brohaven. He announced it on Twitter. It's a test run and other reasons. What's a test run? Yeah. So hey, Crag man, what's going on? And Phil, what's happening there? So yeah, there were only a couple of things that I thought were kind of interesting. I wanted to do more streams, but they dropped a massive game on me that I had to review. Which game was that? I'm curious now. I'm curious to see what game that was. And Suave, let me ask how do you I don't know if I asked this before. Do you apply to get review copies of games, or do they contact you, or like how does that even work? Oh, Valkyria Chronicles 4. Oh, yeah, I've been seeing people play that. Hey, King Chaos, what you're poke you back. You know what's funny? I just got one of those on Facebook. Poke. It was like it was a random name. So it's like they poked you, and I'm sitting there, and I go through these range of like, is that still a thing? And who the hell is this? And then it's porn. It's most likely porn. So I check, and then, yeah, of course it's porn. Can we talk about how saving is important? Yes, but not saving leads to some amazing laughs. Bit about some high-end ones we have to request. A lot of indies and stuff we get sent to. Oh, okay. What even is a poke? I don't have Facebook. When Facebook was coming up, it's basically just a way to send a message without sending a message. You know, instead of sending a message that just says hi, it's just you poke them, and then that's. Did that even start on Facebook, or was that a MySpace thing? Are we getting a DDR? Hey, porn is good. Yeah, King Chaos, free porn is good. Johnny learned an important lesson. The speedrun replays on Mega Man 11 stages are amazing on my... Oh, okay. All right, so I wanted to get into this first topic here, and I hope you guys can hear me. For some reason, I can't hear myself very well on my headphones. They announced the Mega Man movie. I don't think there are any details on it beyond they announced the Mega Man live-action movie. We know that I believe there's a Sonic... I think the Sonic movie is live action. I think somebody can clear me up on that one. They're also talking about doing a Lilo and Stitch live action movie. We had the Beauty and the Beast live action movie. We've had in the anime world we've had we had I think Bleach had a live action movie. What was the Death Note live action movie? And I have a few problems with this. I think my biggest my first Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell, which wasn't a bad movie. Actually, that's a good example. I'm going to save that. I like that the Ghost in the Shell movie and the Dragon Ball Z movie are in the same sentence, and they are not the same quality. What about the Dance Dance Revolution? Well, flipping it, I already mentioned the Mega Man movie. I didn't know there was a DDR movie coming up. A DDR movie. Okay, a DDR movie is actually not awful. I'm gonna explain why. But I have a few issues with this because it's easy to point out specific movies and say, okay, well that was a good one, that was not a good one. I have a widespread problem with this, and my biggest problem with this is, why is animation a problem? Is how I feel. It's if animation was fine, if everybody thought animation was okay, and everybody went to see these movies despite them being animated, there would be no reason to make a live action movie. Yet for some reason, they have decided that the animation is for, I don't know, it's for children, it's for a separate audience. So they decided they want to make these live action movies. At my first thought, and I do think this, especially for Western audiences, I do think that there is this stigma that animation is for children and live action is for grown-ups. I do honestly believe that there is that stigma. And it sucks. It sucks that exists as a thing. Here's my problem with that, though. And you can help me out here, because I may be wrong in this. Recently, the Death Note and Bleach movies, were they created by Western studios or were they created by Japanese studios? Because it's understandable when Western markets do this. It's not acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable. I think it's stupid. But it's understandable because of that stigma. I can see their logic, even though their logic is wrong. But for a Japanese studio, I think they were Western. Okay, so they were Western studio. Okay, so then yeah, so then we can eliminate that as an idea, because that's what I was thinking, was that it was a little weird that they were coming from over there. Yeah, Rurouni Kenshin. That's the one that I was thinking of. I knew there was another. I don't know if there was a live action Bleach. I was thinking of a sword fighting movie, and I knew there was a Rurouni Kenshin. They did make. Okay, I knew a Western studio made Ghost in the Shell. I didn't know about Death Note and Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin. I find it weird that a Western studio would make that, considering that the broad Western market has no idea what the hell that is. So that's my biggest problem, is that there's this idea that animation is for kids, so it needs to be remade for a more adult audience, when you could easily just make an adult themed animation movie. We've seen that before plenty of times. We've seen it with Sausage Party, which I have a problem with Sausage Party, but that's another topic. I remember when Roger Rabbit came out, and it was great. It's grown for the kids. You know, it's a little intense though. Judge Doom was pretty intense for very small kids, but it was fine. It was ultimately, you could take your kids to see it. This is back when PG and PG-13 was for kids, and people didn't have this idea that if it's for kids, it has to be G-rated, which is stupid. Kenshin was made in Japan. Okay. Then Cool World happened. See, and that's the thing. Yeah, see, Phil, there were jokes like the booby trap and stuff, but that was fine for kids. Cool World was not a kids movie. And I remember there being a problem of people taking their kids to see this movie, walking out of the movie because it was not what they expected. We actually just saw that recently when the first Deadpool came out, that there were parents that were really upset because it was supposed to be a superhero movie, and for the last decade, they were used to superhero movie, Marvel movies. You take your kids to see them. It was fun. It was a little intense as far as the action goes, but it was usually really fun. And then they took their kids to see Deadpool, and holy crap. They were out of there in 20 minutes, if even that, because they realized very quickly it is not a kids movie. What's Cool World? Cool World was a half animation movie like Roger Rabbit was, with very very adult themes to it. It was pretty intense, very sexy. Um, Imagine having to explain to pagan kids. Yeah, like Space Jam and Roger Rabbit. Yeah, see, and there's these movies that were. Didn't Cool World get a Mega Drive? I believe, yeah, there is a Cool World Mega Drive. I believe there's also a Super Nintendo game for it. But yeah, there's this idea that animation is not for grown-ups. It is not for, okay, not for grown-ups, not for a serious market. And I think that that's ridiculous. I've talked before about DC and Marvel and their movie making, and I've talked about that plenty of times. How DC, I think that DC are kings when it comes to the animated movie scene. I think that their animated movies are fantastic and worlds over Marvel. It bothers me that they didn't take that opportunity, scrap the DC live action universe, and say, you know what, we're going to build a DC animated universe that, you know, you can go to the movies for the live action Marvel stuff, or you could go to the movies for and you could go to the movies for the animated DC stuff. I think that would have been a phenomenal idea. I don't think Marvel would have bothered to challenge them at all, which means that DC would have ruled this roost. They would have had it. But it's animation, which means they probably think that they can't sell it to grown-ups. Which, if you've seen a lot of those movies are amazing, man. Stuff like what was it, Batman, Superman, Apocalypse, Flashpoint Paradox, I think was one of the best ones I've ever seen. Son of Batman was kind of what was it, Justice League War, All-Star Superman I thought was great. I think that those are movies that I would have gone to the theater to see. I would have gone to the theater to watch Flashpoint Paradox. I would have gone. I believe I went to the theater to see Mask of the Phantasm. It's coming back to theaters this November, and you're damn right I'm going to try my very best to go and see it, assuming I can still buy a ticket to it. People who take their kids to see Deadpool need to be slapped when they. Yeah, well, no, King Chaos. See, that's the thing, though. The Marvel movies and comic book movies in general now have their reach has expanded so far that it has gone beyond people who normally read comic books. So it's okay that they saw this and said, "Oh, it's a superhero movie." My problem is that at the end of the commercial, it says rated R, and word of mouth is that Deadpool is not for kids. So it bothered me that people went into the theater surprised. It's like, maybe you should have done a little bit of research into what goes on in some of these movies. Maybe you should have listened a little bit, because you didn't have to do any research because I knew about Deadpool. I don't follow Deadpool. I didn't follow Deadpool as a comic reader or anything. I knew that he was a silly fourth wall breaking character. That's all I knew about him. I didn't know that there was a lot of vulgarity and stuff like that with it. I did once I started seeing trailers for it, and people started telling me, "Oh yeah, the character's actually really vulgar." Like, okay, that's fine. That's up my alley. But it didn't take me long to find that out. You know, so to anybody who took their kids to see Deadpool and didn't realize that was an adult movie, probably needs to be slapped with the internet. Because that'll tell you really fast, okay, reconsider. Deadpool comics are less edgy than the movie. Oh, so even if you knew about the comics, you probably weren't going to expect the pegging scene. Mask of the Phantasm was on Amazon Prime. Mask of the Phantasm is probably one of the best DC animated movies ever. Next to Flashpoint Paradox, I thought Flashpoint Paradox was phenomenal. And I thought the Flashpoint Paradox was phenomenal because you didn't need a whole lot of knowledge to understand the idea of what was going on. I don't think you needed like All-Star Superman. you didn't need a lot of knowledge, but you were going, if you didn't have a lot of knowledge, you were going to see a lot of characters that you had no idea who they were. But they did a good job of kind of explaining them when they needed to explain them. Like, I thought it was good. Because, yeah, I don't follow Superman much. Not as intensely as that movie would have required. But I still had a fantastic time watching that movie. I thought it was great. I need to watch the Batman Beyond. I think I've seen that movie, and I'm not sure, which is weird because I love Batman Beyond. The only animated movies that get taken seriously are Ghibli, and even those, only Spirited Away was awarded to my. And I think the other ones won some awards and stuff, but I don't think it was that intense. Bit of a different topic. Have you seen the trend in mainstream video game box art? No, Suave. We will. I want to talk about that though. That sounds interesting. I love box art, so I'm interested in that. Mask of Fence has an amazing film, and it tanked in the theater. It tanked in the theater. I really don't know why though. That one Superman movie with the handsome Superman meme. I don't know. I don't know which one that is. Is that the one where they're all wearing like eyeliner and stuff? I think that's Apocalypse. You guys seen Death of Superman? I did not see Death of Superman. I read the comic, and it's like Death of Superman. Which one? Yeah. So I have this problem that they feel that it's necessary. Now here's okay. So here's a weird thing about the live action remakes of animated movies. I don't actually think it's completely unwarranted sometimes, like 100% of the time. I think that old things that can come up new. Old franchises, old ideas that were, a cartoon from the with modern technology the way it's been, and I know people would throw a fit if this were to happen. Hey, Aqua Sakura. Let's take something like... No, you know what? I'll tell you exactly where it already happened. The Transformers movie. Yes, the Transformers movie was not what everybody was hoping for. Clearly. I think that it wasn't. I will still argue to this day that when you went to the theater and you saw the first movie and your helicopter landed and you heard it transform and it started shooting up the place, you thought that was amazing. I can promise you thought that was amazing because it was. It was very cool the way it happened. It's just then the rest of the series happened and it was not what we were expecting. But the franchise on an animation level had sort of not been dead, but was sort of pushed off to the corner. There were the multiple series, but they were never really given a whole lot of profile. When the idea came to remake the animation into the whole plate, when the idea came to remake it into a live action movie, of course there is the idea of, oh my God, it's going to suck. What if it sucks? What if it's terrible? But the actual notion of it, taking an old franchise like that, using today's computer graphics and CGI technology, and creating a live action version of this old thing is great. The Gem movie. I thought the Gem movie was horrible. I thought it was a ridiculous, terrible movie that had nothing to do with Gem the cartoon except for the names of the characters and the name of the movie. That's it. But that movie had potential. There was the opportunity, and that's why I didn't like it, because it failed so hard. Because what they could have done was taken today's technology, and this is actually still salvageable. There is still a way to do this. You could have taken today's technology. You could have said, okay, this is who they are. Because the whole idea of Gem transforming, Jerrica transforming into Gem, it is very sci-fi for what was considered the girl cartoon. That's one of those cartoons that was considered the girl cartoon. I watched the hell out of it because I have no shame and I do what I want. What is worse that they got fans to be in it? Yeah, Elements, that was a whole big thing. They asked fans what they thought of Gem, and they were telling them about the cartoon, and they put it into the movie. You could have had a whole scenario where Gem is they go on stage, and to hide, basically like the cartoon, to hide who they are, they perform on stage using these holograms. Like, you could have made the show into the movie today, made it live action, given it a more serious tone, and it would have been phenomenal. It would have been a great update to a franchise that was relatively long gone. You know, people know about it, but there are no other gem cartoons. It would have been a great opportunity. So it's hard for me to say live action is out completely, that it just doesn't work. The problem is that oftentimes I feel like some people look at it and say, oh, well, live action makes it more serious, and think you don't have to put any effort into it. And that's where you get the Dragon Ball Z movie, the Death Note movie. Lion King live action version makes no sense. Yeah, it's got to be CG. And bruh, that's kind of my issue with the. She also has a magic supercomputer. That's right. And do you remember the supercomputer's name? Hey, Fro man, we started at 5 today. If the setting works for live action, I'm okay. A live action Sonic the Hedgehog movie doesn't work. The characters are anthropomorphic characters, animals. Even the human characters are out of proportion. There is no Windows Defender. Thank you for interrupting me. There's no realistic looking version of Eggman. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work. I really want to watch it though. It doesn't work. And the JoJo live action movie, because of that setting, it doesn't work. Mega Man kind of doesn't work because of the shapes of the robot masters, depending on what you're going to put in there. The shape of Mega Man himself, because he's supposed to be much shorter. He's a little short robot guy. I just think that the aesthetic of Mega Man doesn't work for a live action movie. When you say they made that Riverdale show, which is about Archie and them, you know, it's a live action version of the comic book, which I think at some point was a cartoon for a while. They're human characters. That's fine. You can make a live action movie out of that. It works perfectly. Gem was a horrible movie, but the concept of a live action movie works fine. It's great. Super Mario Brothers. You want to make that into a movie? Fine. It doesn't translate very well to live action. And that's what was it, 86? Was that? No, God. What the hell year was that movie? It was awful. It was awful in the best possible way. It doesn't translate well into a live action version of it, though. They're making it CG. That's perfect. Popeye CG trailer that leaked the feed. Phil, yes, I do. I think we all remember that Popeye trailer. We all remember it very bittersweetly too, because that movie was canceled in order to make the Emoji Movie. My intro to Archie was a paranormal series called Archie's Weird Mysteries. Well, did you know that Archie is the origin of Sabrina the Teenage Witch? Mario Brothers was 93. Or as Element puts it, Mario Bors was 93. Yeah, there is a place for live action versions of animation. It's not every place, though. Whether or not it's even necessary, Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty and the Beast movie came out, the live action one with Emma Watson as Beauty and Emma Watson as Belle, or as I like to call her, personified Stockholm Syndrome. Mario snores. Hey, Sean! Look at Sean with the fancy icon. Oh, I'm so happy that you have your the little badge there. Beauty and the Beast. I didn't actually think that the movie was awful. I thought that they did a good job of correcting a few things, because there was some clarification from the animation that we don't know. There's also a Netflix series. Yes, I did see that Netflix Sabrina show, and it looks really good. I thought the Beauty and the Beast movie was okay. As far as not needing one, I like this idea that Beauty and the Beast did, where it took something older and remade it as, they could have remade the animation, but they made it a live action movie. So it made sense that, okay, well, it's been a long time. They wanted to remake the movie and try something a little different at the same time. It kind of makes sense that they went live action. If they would have remade regardless of the question of whether or not there was a point in remaking it at all, if they would have remade it as an animation, you would have thought that it was more pointless than if they remade it as a live action movie. Again, you may not have liked it either way, but if they would have remade that movie and said, oh, it's an animation, you would have thought, well, there's already an animation. Like, I don't understand what the hell's even the point of that. So it's understandable that they went with live action. It makes sense. Live action reboot of Cops. Phil, not live action, CG. I thought Cops was a fantastic cartoon. I loved that cartoon. What live action shows and movies should get the animated treatment? What live action should get the animated treatment? That's an interesting question. How would we go the other way? Okay. I haven't watched it yet, but I know that a lot of you have. So please don't ruin it for me. If we're talking, okay, hold on. Let me clear something up. Let me ask you something here, bruh. Let me ask you something. When you say animated treatment, do you mean a kid's type of animation, like animation for kids, or do you mean it's still intense, still hardcore, darker themes, but made for adults, but animation? Which version do you mean? The Wire or the anime? Sean, now I also demand a Firefly animation. Some live action renditions. Cinderella could translate into a live action movie. They're all real people in a fantasy setting. So I'm kind of curious now. This is an interesting idea. Mission Impossible, either kids or adult, doesn't matter. I like the idea of Firefly, because that's there was a show called Dollhouse which actually had an ending to it. I wouldn't want an animation version of that because it means you have to continue the story and there's no point. I was going to mention this before. Supernatural. I know that they just had that Scooby-Doo episode, which I haven't seen yet, but I think that is a show that, if you maintain its dark themes, you can do a lot more with animation than you can with live action. You can do more with animation in a visual way with that than you can with live action. They do a great job with live action stuff, but a dark animated version of that I think would be amazing. Still need to watch that Scooby-Doo episode. Ooh, Dollhouse, I heard the elements. We're actually about to start watching through that again. We wanted to watch through Dollhouse for a while. So I think we have both seasons, so we're going to watch through that. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was really dark. They should make an anime about Pokemon. I'm still waiting for my real-time strategy game about everything that happened before World of Warcraft. Charlie. Buffy the Vampire Slayer animation. Holy smokes. I'll take a Buffy animation for that. I think that it seems to be a lot of the darker shows. I feel like comedy, lighthearted shows maybe don't translate well, or will translate too much into a more like a slice of life show than a comedy. Because when you look at comedy shows like Friends, when you look at the stuff that was very, very popular, essentially those were because of the live action, because you had to make them realistic, because of the fact that it's live action, because it's human beings. You have to make them realistic. So you have to put them in these realistic settings. So most comedy shows are like 60% slice of life. If you're familiar with slice of life anime, where it's not as much about the comedy as it is about the situations that these people get into, the real life analogs of situations that they get into, and then how they resolve them. It's just there's jokes in between. Hey, Silver. You know, there are plenty of shows where that's the point, is that you need to see. I mean, originally sitcom was situation comedy. The idea was that they got into these real life situations, and then there just happened to be some humor involved, and that's how you got through it. If you take the humor out of a lot of these shows, they're actually pretty intense. Like, they're going through these real problems, and not those stupid videos where they remove the laugh track. I think that those videos are stupid, but you take out the jokes and you just leave the situations that they go through. And most comedy shows turn into heartfelt slice of life shows. You know, they are dealing with some serious issues there. Seeing Friends as an anime would be nice. Live action South Park would not work. The settings and the characters are just too ridiculous for it to work. CG would be nice. CG would work, I think, okay with that. But I think part of the thing with South Park is the animation style, the papercraft animation style. I think that's part of the charm of it. Ever heard of Little Nemo? Had an animated movie but failed, and the original source material so created. I would love to see that character return. I think that would work well as a CG. Actually, no. You know what? I think that Little Nemo would work as a 2D animated character in a 2D animated world until because it's like the Dream Master. I know the NES game Little Nemo and the Dream Master, but he apparently goes into the dream world. When he goes into the dream world, it turns into CG because it's, you know, sort of a way to say that the dream world is where he is more real than in the real world. You know, I think there's an interesting sort of message there without actually giving the message. If you watched Madoka Magica, it's an anime that came out. The Page Master. If you watch Madoka Magica, whenever they go into like the demon witch world or whatever, the animation style is vastly different. Wildly different. And that's the point, is that because this world exists in such a fantastical way that it's supposed to look different. I have never actually watched Page Master. Is that the Macaulay Culkin movie? Friends also had a live action Code Lyoko. Did they have a Code Lyoko movie? Interesting. You know what I'll take? You know what I'll take a CG version of? Or I would take a live action version of it. I think it would be a little weird, but marvelous, miraculous. Is it? What's her name? It's like the Ladybug girl. It's like Miraculous and Cat Noir. Dude, Page Master was dope. Little Nemo, yeah. Oh yeah, I know of Little Nemo from the NES game, which is hard as balls. Miraculous. Oh yeah, yes, I love Miraculous. That's just so great. And Cat Noir. I'll take a CG version of that. And it was Macaulay Culkin. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's probably why I avoided it, because I was getting tired of Macaulay Culkin. What do you think about the live action Avatar Netflix series? I don't know that there's a point to it, but I think that Avatar deserves another shot at live action, just because the first version failed so badly. Yeah, Macaulay Culkin with the sad adult face gives me. Yeah, I don't hate the person. I don't know the person to hate him, but I got tired of seeing him for a while. Okay, Home Alone was funny. Home Alone 2 was not as funny. Home Alone 3, Home Alone 3 I don't think was him. Home Alone 3 was the other kid. Like, I loved him in The Good Son because he was such a dick. Like, live action. See, no, I don't think a live action Overwatch would work. I think that the characters and settings are too crazy. I think if you do an Overwatch movie, it needs to be CG. I think it needs to be CG. And I'm sorry, I wasn't sick, but I think I started to get sick and then stopped starting. So I still have like the cough and everything. What about a Harry Potter anime? After watching a video that explains how the character should have looked, I think an animated adaptation of the novels. Aqua, not anime. I don't think that it would work as an anime. I don't think I would be happy to see it as an anime. I think that if you were going to do an anime, I think that something a little plainer. What? Oh my God. The Enchanted Parade. What show am I thinking of? Little Witch Academia. I think Little Witch Academia style would work very well with it. I also think, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, Wakfu, or Dofus, I think was the original. I know it's a weird name that I have to say in order to get it right. I think that style of animation would suit itself better. I think visually it's more interesting to look at. I love anime, but there is so much of it. I think if you want something to stand out, I think you need to start looking at a different kind of animation in order to make it work. Wakfu Dofus. Dread. How about Dread animated? No. And the reason why that's a no is because I loved that Dread movie that came out, 2014 or 2012? I loved that movie with Carl Urban. And I want more of that movie. I want that setting, live action. I want everything that movie gave me. And I want more of it. But I want it live action. Which Avatar, the great cartoon, or the movie with nothing? I like the movie. I think a Judge Dredd anime or animation would be amazing. But if I have to get anything Judge Dredd, I want more of that movie. Make an anime for a modern era, but in a I see what you mean. Latimer, how about Gem? If they were to redo 80s, well, no, okay, and anime in particular. How about a season of, or at least one episode of 80s style anime, My Hero Academia? Anime of Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, anime of Shawshank Redemption, but it's ecchi anime. Greg, Dread 2 live action. Oh my God. And Dread the animated series. Tie them together. Why not tie them together? I think they're modern anime with characters designs that look like they came from the 80s. I know, Aqua. I know what Latimer means though. That there's a distinct style. My problem with 80s anime is that a lot of it, the voice work is bad. And that's my biggest problem. Like I'm watching. I just finished, or I'm finishing. I haven't gotten back to watch. I'm like 2 or 3 episodes away from the end. I finished watching. Well, I'm going to finish Macross Super Dimension Fortress, and the voice work is just bad. I mean, the voice work is bad. There are visual glitches. You'll see frames of animation that are put in the wrong place, and it's. I would love an 80s style anime, but once I see 80s style anime, I associate it with some very bad things. Yeah, not specifically the voice acting. Yeah, it's the visual style I get. Project Echo. I talk about Project Echo all the time. I love Project Echo. I think that had great voice work. I think that the visual style was very distinctly 80s. I think that with the hair, the way they had it and everything, I think that Echo was as 80s anime as you could get. Are we talking about? No, we're not talking about lewd things. Not this conversation. That's a conversation for another time. Gundam and Sailor were planning to be adapted to 80s car. I like that. I think that would be great. I think it works, especially for Sailor Moon, which I believe was an 80s cartoon. Dirty Pair OVA is good acting, probably because it was dubbed into. Yeah, see, that's the problem. If you old anime, that was the whole big thing with subs and dubs. People, subs are better, dubs are better. I think that anybody who thinks that dubs are horrible is thinking of dubs from the 80s and early 90s. And yeah, they were horrible. The dubs back then were god awful. Nobody was taking it seriously. Eventually it turned out, and there were some great dubs back then. If you watch the Ninja Scroll movie and the Ghost in the Shell movie in dubbed, they're fantastic. They're great. The voice work was fantastic. I don't understand what the problem is. But then you watch stuff like Inuyasha, and you're like, oh god. Even the early Berserk, like the Berserk anime was bad voicing, bad voices. But yeah, it just I don't know, just the whole live action discussion. It's kind of like, is there even a point? Because sometimes, and I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that a lot of people just say automatically, oh God, no. And it's like, well, you know what? Is there a point? I mean, does it work? Has the show been gone for a long time and they want to bring it back? But if you're gonna bring it back, you might as well bring it back as something a little different, a little, more edgy, as they want you to believe that it is. There's a time and a place for it. The question is just, whenever this comes up, is this the time and place for it? Lilo and Stitch, they're saying that Lilo and Stitch they're talking about a live action movie. I don't think it works because, okay, it's fine. It's Lilo and it's Stitch. I've seen plenty of cosplayers do both of those costumes and they're great. But you're going to make a live action Stitch? You're going to make a live action Pleakley and Captain Gantu, and you're going to make all of these characters. Sorry, my Lilo and Stitch knowledge is a little extensive. But you're going to make these characters and it doesn't work. Cobra Bubbles is a fantastic looking character because he is so large in comparison to the other people. Unfortunately, Michael Clark Duncan has passed on, so we won't get him. Ving Rhames isn't big enough for it to look as intimidating as it needs to look. The 90s Berserk anime has some great outtakes. Bakuno has a really good dub. Have you watched Megalo box art by any? I have not. Suave, when we get to the next part of the next segment, ask me again about that box art stuff. David Ogston Stiers. I don't know who that is. Let me know who that is so we can. I mean, rest in peace to him for just because he's a human being, but. Not gonna lie, I'm actually curious about Lilo and Stitch. It's Siberian Ninja. I can't say that I'm scoffing at it. I think Lilo and Stitch is a problem for me though, because that is an example of the animation was fine. The animation did everything that it should have done. It's not that super old. There's no more story to tell. With Maleficent, I saw somebody mention Maleficent. Maleficent works as a live action movie. Why? Because this was the follow-up to an animation movie. It's not a remake of the animation movie. It is a different tone than the original animation was. So it makes sense for them to go about it in a whole different visual style. And that's the thing. When people think there's animation and there's live action, and there's not. There are animation. First of all, animation also encompasses CG. So I that's why I differentiate. When I say animation, I mean 2D. When I say CG, I mean 3D. When I say live action, I mean live action. But even in those houses, there are different kinds of settings. There are, and when you say animation, you could go with a dark and gritty, serious looking animation. You can go with a very bright, childish looking animation. You know, there are multiple levels of that. CG is the same thing. Live action is the same thing. They all look like people, but if you could decorate the sets a lot differently in a dark themed show, you can relight everything in a darker themed show than you can in a the set on Supernatural and the set on Friends, I promise you, looks very different. Fun fact, Stitch had an anime and it sucks. The Stitch anime was Experiment 626, and it was the professor was capturing, they were going around capturing the other experiments that had escaped. And I actually didn't think it was that bad of a show. It was a very interesting concept. I heard a little Stitch anime. Thought about giving it a try. We'll see if that's around. Yeah. All right. So what is it? 548. All right. So that's my thoughts on that. Before we go to break, no, not that. Oh, a different one. Okay.